the fan down on the air conditioning to make less noise. PJNet.tv, 9 p.m. East Coast time here in the United States. You're watching PJNet Live. You see the bumper, and you will see even more very shortly. We are recording this for quality assurance and training purposes, of course, only. And we are streaming to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And we are about to go on the air after we count it down to Studio 36 Alpha. Okay, that one ends at 1, some of our new countdown sequences. Good evening, this is PJNet.tv. I am Coach Prasick, and it is Thursday night, and it is always there's only one thing more fun, but the second most fun we can have, you know what I mean, is when we have a first-time guest, and we're about to introduce our first-time guest. The only thing better is when they become a second-time guest. Tonight, right here on the big screen, all the way from somewhere north of the Mason-Dixon line, is all I will say, is Dr. Mel Tavares. And, Doctor, are you a physician?
No.
No.
I have a doctorate in ministry and pastoral care and counseling.
Oh my gosh, they offer doctors in that? Doctorates?
Yep.
So you're the expert on... Now, why on earth would pastors need counseling? I thought they were the counselors. Or do you teach them how to counsel?
I do teach them how to counsel, but I also work in the pastoral care and counseling department at my church.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you're doing that, because I happen to know from some of the work I have done as a layperson with the association to which our church belongs, is everybody knows that when you have a problem, well, gee, you can get some free counseling from the pastor. But it doesn't occur to many people that the pastors themselves might be human. They might have problems of their own. Who does the pastor go to?
Each other.
By and large.
Or another pastor in another church, maybe?
Yeah.
But
usually in a very distant
distant
location, so that word can't get back what the problem is,
Correct.
Because the way we solve our problems in that profession is shoot the wounded. We do, don't we? The only thing that is anywhere near that is coaching. Those two are the only two professions I know of that you are so welcomed with red carpet. And in a short period of time, usually 2 years, maybe 3, they are showing you the door and running you out of town. And that must be hard on pastors and their families.
Sad statement. Our senior pastor started our church, and he's been there 30 some odd years.
That is wonderful. But that is the exception. Or at least in my denomination, that would be a real exception. That would be.
I must be doubly blessed because my pastor back in Maine was there 43 years before he retired. So...
Y'all don't get mad with your people up there? I mean, that's how we solve our problems. If we disagree with the pastor, we accuse him, we start a rumor, falsely accuse him of something, and he has to leave because he's guilty until proven innocent, which he can't do, right? Isn't that how it works?
I'm not going to say that they didn't try that with my pastor up north, but yeah, haven't had that problem here.
You do know the drill, though. I mean, I'm saying this kind of lightheartedly. It's not funny. But I say it in sort of a satirical way. It is sad that we treat our pastors with such irreverence, and we expect them to be something that Jesus Christ is the only one that would qualify, I believe. But I'm glad that you are doing what you're doing, because pastors do need pastors. Pastors do have problems.
Yeah.
Pastors are really very much like you and I, but we hold them to a standard that they cannot possibly meet. And when they stumble, they have to leave. when we stumble, there's a path of reconciliation, usually, depending on how egregious the crime,
Right.
but it would seem to me the purpose of counseling would be to restore and reconcile, but in my denomination, that is seldom the case. It's usually to relocate. Your ministry is over here. And of course
Yeah.
and just like in coaching, okay, so now you have a vacancy, you need a pastor. The pastors that are available, ones that have been fired somewhere else. That's,
That's that's exactly right.
am I telling the truth?
And
Yeah,
that's why a lot of churches are closing, right? Especially post COVID. They haven't even reopened, a lot of them up here at least.
really?
And I hear that across the country, they're just not.
Well, a lot of churches, I was rejoicing in a way, began doing what I have been lobbying for since dial-up internet. Is go online. The radio stations figured out pretty quickly that their terrestrial-based audience within the umbrella of their antenna is small compared with the internet. But I
Right.
never could get the churches to see that vision. But COVID got them to see it.
Right. I was thankful that we were already live streaming before COVID, so we had a crew and we were ready to just move into a higher level. But what's happened since we reopened is you have an online church community, and we consistently hear like they're coming from all over the country and some of them out of the country. They are not interested, even the Connecticut ones are not interested in necessarily returning. They like their little community that's online, and it's from the convenience of their home, and it works for them. So we're now um, developing tools to help them without being in person.
Okay, please tell me I'm wrong. But one of the failures of online church is you can't exactly pass the plate.
Well, I'm going to tell you that that is correct, and we've heard that from a lot of other pastors. I belong to a group of about 150 pastors here in Connecticut, and we hear that that is an issue, but it is not an issue for us. So praise God for that.
Well,
We have worked hard and we build community. We do a lot of things online, different groups, Facebook groups, different. We have an athletic department that's zooming 3 times a week with different things, so it keeps people involved. So they don't feel, even though they're not in person, they don't feel like they're not a part of us.
mhm,
They feel very much connected. So they continue tithing
yeah.
and giving offerings as if they were in person. So where a lot of churches struggled, we did not. Thank
Well, you're very
goodness.
blessed. You're
We
very
just,
fortunate. But
yeah,
it's almost like we're not supposed to talk about it. The
right,
church can't admit that they're struggling. Financially.
right,
They can't admit that they're prospering either. Nobody's happy. But I know, in my own ministry online, one of the shortcomings or one of the challenges is there's a difference between asking for donations versus passing a plate that you got to touch the thing. You got to pass it on, and the eyeballs are on you. I don't know how it is where you are, but in my denomination, everybody touches the plate. Okay, you take it in his hand.
well, I'd say we did until COVID, and then we stopped and we started using push bag. So we transitioned everybody over to using digital. And then for the few that still wanted to do cash or checks, if they were coming to the church in person, then we installed lock boxes
Mm-hmm.
around the sanctuary. And when they exit, they can do that. And then the security team helps gather those
Oh,
with the leadership, and they go and count it that way. But we probably, I don't want to misspeak, I'd say probably 80% are digital giving now.
really? That's marvelous, Mel. I'm really, I rejoice. But do you get to talk to pastors on that subject?
I do. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
they, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much resistance do they put up?
For going digital, you
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
I would say before the pandemic happened, almost everybody resisted.
Yeah.
But now there's not really an option because it all had to be contactless.
Yeah.
So passing the plate,
Hmm.
the same as passing communion or anything else,
Hmm.
became very difficult. So I think that I've seen a lot of churches that have had to. We tend to be like a hub. We're kind of leading the way up here in the little state of Connecticut. And we have a lot of people that turn to us and call and ask for how do we do this? And we just tell people you have to really just keep plugging away and telling them it needs to be digital, that it's completely safe,
Safe.
that their money is safe and all of that. So it's worked.
Well, I've wrestled with online transactions, whether it be sales or donate, whatever. But people will they're very quick to say, I don't really trust the internet, with my and if you probed about that, they couldn't tell you why. I mean, I can tell you why it is secure, but
Right.
those same people, after telling you that, will go to a restaurant where alcohol is served and order a few drinks and hand their credit card to a teenager who disappears for 5 minutes or more with their credit card, comes back to the table wondering, is this your card or is this somebody else's? Hand you somebody else's, card. Now, we don't know if they wrote the numbers down during that 10 minutes. I find it ironic. I find it moronic that they hold on to this belief that, oh, well, online, no, I'm going to put the check in the mail. That's more safer.
It's true.
It's,
But I think that logic has gone out the window with a lot of people. So
well, you want to elaborate on that? You want,
hmm?
you
Do
want
I
to
want to
elaborate?
elaborate?
Yeah,
I
what do you
think
mean has logic gone out the
I,
window? With who? Why? How, what makes you say that?
I think across the country right now, with everything going on, there's no rhyme, no reason, no common sense, no logic, and it's just a very haphazard system we're living in, isn't it?
I I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I wonder, where critical thinking used to be a merit. Remember? Yeah, you were considered smart
I
if you
was
thought
just going
critically.
to say the same thing.
Well, then
Right.
say it.
There's no, and it's interesting because there's supposedly with Common Core, they
Mhm.
are teaching critical thinking as a necessary skill. That's
No, they're
what's
not.
been purported.
Yeah.
They say they are. We want everybody to think critically, but the truth is people don't know how to think critically, and so now we have a generation of parents that are now, I'll say the millennials,
Hmm.
the upper millennials that are now raising the kids that are in our schools. Those parents never learned critical thinking skills, and now their kids don't know critical thinking skills, and we're doomed. There
Well,
better be a few of us still around that know how to think.
well, yeah, right. But what's troubling, and what you just said is troubling because not only is critical thinking skills not being taught, it's actually worse. If you are a critical thinker, you are shamed. You're part of the problem. How dare you question? Well, I thought science was the discipline of questioning. I thought. I mean, no, not I think. It is true that science is a discipline of seeking the truth by questioning truth claims. If it's true, it can be validated, it can be verified, it can be replicated. Well, all of those steps involve challenging the truth claim, all of them, and that was
Right.
held in high esteem. Not anymore. No, 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 no,
That's
no.
correct.
No, how dare you? In fact, if you have a different opinion or question the truth, you are now propagating misinformation, and it could harm others.
It could. And and there's no It used to be that you would be able to separate out and say it's a certain group of people, it's, a certain socioeconomic, it's a certain race, it's a whoever. Now it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, how old you are. If you question on any level, then you're the dissenter,
Well,
the deplorables.
not only the dissenter, you are a danger to the rest of us. It's gone. Like you started out by saying common sense has gone out the window. I wish that was all. I wish it ended there. It gets worse and worse every day.
Yes,
I
it
see
does.
it. And the idea of null hypothesis, in the scientific method, that was taught to me to avoid injecting bias into an experiment. I was a judge at a science fair, and not one of these students even knew what I was talking about. Not only did they not have a null hypothesis, they had no idea what I was talking about. In fact, the whole purpose of this little experiment that they set up was to prove their theory. No, that's not how you do it. You assume that your theory is false and you put it to the test and
Correct.
validate it. Anyway, we're just in a mess. We're in a world of hurt. It's a terrible
We're in a
world out
world of
there.
hurt, and it's not going to get any better. And
It's not.
these are the youth that are going to be our fearless leaders in
Leaders.
10 or 15 years.
Well, we've spent quite a bit of time belly aching. There must be some good news out there. Surely your book, Challenged, Equipping Families to Thrive in Today's Youth Culture, do you proclaim the doom and gloom, it's over, there's hopeless, or is there some hope?
I think there's hope. I think that the premise of the book is that parents need to. It's really geared for Christian parents. I'm not saying that non-Christian parents cannot derive nuggets from it, but really, it's a Bible-based book that's saying we have to get back to parenting the way we're supposed to be parenting according to the Bible. And I would say, Deuteronomy is very clear about how we're supposed to do it. And I see a tragic trend amongst parents across the country because this is dissertation work that I did. And so there was 3 years of research. And I met with a lot of different focus groups. And one of the trends was that parents don't have time. They won't take the time to raise their kids. So they're birthing them, and by the time they're barely out of diapers, they're putting them in preschool, and then they're happy to send them to school and let the school feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner if they would. They send them, and they don't get involved in their schools. They're not doing anything. So I think to me, the answer is that it has to be a spiritual return to what does the Bible say about how we are supposed to parent our kids. We don't hand them off to the government to do it or to the proverbial village takes a child, but we have to watchdog. And there's so much coming against the kids these days that you really have to become very savvy. You have to learn, like, what are they up to? What are they pretending they're not doing? What language means different things now? You have to really be on it 24/7. And I sadly hear a lot of parents saying, we don't have the energy. So part of the reason I wrote this was, and did a lot of research and continue doing it, is to spit out some of those statistics and the data and real life stories of kids that are tragically caught up in societal woes, and the parents are looking at each other saying, well, what happened? How did that happen? And I'm like, well, it happened when you were too busy.
I could, and we don't have time. We're a couple minutes out here, but you use the word parents plural, and I would challenge that, saying, first of all, that's the biblical model, parents plural. It takes two to make that child. It takes two to raise that child. And so the erosion, the foundation that stands on, by the time those children get in school, that foundation itself has already been eroded. They are on shaky ground from get-go. And some of these notions, I mean, I have to be careful what I say because, we're on social media right now and we're live. But there is a thing,
Right.
there are roles that fathers have typically performed, and there are roles that mothers typically performed. And the fact of the matter is that we are biologically and medically engineered differently for different tasks. Now you can complain about that all you want to. I might even agree with you. But even if I agreed with you, I'll have to say you need to take that up with God. He did it. If you want to argue with
Right.
God, you go ahead. But you're going to lose, but but I get it. So the what you're saying is disturbing when they say they don't have the energy. And I think what they really mean is they don't make this a priority. They have energy for everything else. And
Correct.
but the mold has kind of been cast that the government schools will relieve you of this burden of child rearing and
Right.
socializing our children, and we're headed down a path. So you get a chance to speak to these people. You've heard all kind of bad news. What do you tell? How do you mediate or mitigate the parents that when they tell you this sewage from hell? What do you tell them?
Well, I start sharing real life stories of people that I know that have had, because statistics only go so far. And I tell them, these are the stories of the kids that I worked with when I worked with the Department of Ed. These are the stories of the youth group kids that I had all through these last 30 years. And they're real tragedies because a parent who should have been involved, should have been connected, should have connected to the kids' schoolroom, should have been looking at their social media accounts and knowing what they're doing. You have to wake up the parent, and part of what my heart is to wake up the youth pastors and let them also. So if we train at a higher level, teach those youth pastors who also don't have time to research all of this, and they are not inside the schools or inside they don't necessarily know. So part of it is to train the pastors and the youth pastors to help educate the families from the pulpits and from, their different platforms, so that we can try to get the job done, because we have to somehow turn the hearts of the Christian parent back to the priority of the family.
Well, I have a question for you that I want to ask, and I have not prepared you for it, and I'm not trying to ambush you. It is a sincere question. Because I had this, you ever get ideas like in the shower? I get so many in the shower. Some of the most inspiring moments are in the shower. I was in the shower about a week ago. I hadn't told anybody this. And we have heard the calls for police officers to wear body cams to bring them into more accountability. Now, regardless of how you feel or I feel about that, here's my question. Well, how would you feel about teachers having cameras with the mics turned on, and anybody can get on the internet and go to any class and listen and see what's going on? I would love to see that as a pilot program somewhere. Anybody can connect to
That
the
would be
internet.
amazing.
Now, how that would go over with some groups like I won't use the analogy that I was thinking. I wonder how well that, but wouldn't it be interesting if we as citizens, not just parents, citizens, no password needed, just go there, punch up the class, just like a security system, just punch it up, listen in and watch in. I bet our schools would change. They would turn on a dime.
Yeah. And that's not to throw the teachers under the bus either, because they've got a hard task that they're dealing with right now. And so I think the teachers are having to do what they're required to do to meet the standards and to teach to the test and to tread carefully on what they say and how they say it and how they behave and what they don't do. And it's a very difficult situation for them.
But they could rally some support by the public finding out what they're really up against in school. I taught for a little while. I actually substitute taught in a public school. And some of the things that were said to me, would I have been in my own mind, I would have took that kid and spanked him right then and there. But you can't, see. But it would be an interesting, it's funny, we're calling the police into account, but and truly I do realize that there are some incidences that need to be more accountable. I get it. But the number of incidences and the social impact, not the personal impact, the social impact of what's going on in those classrooms is light years ahead of whatever impact one officer had who might have mishandled a situation or used bad judgment or outright hated somebody and abused their authority. Right. I don't deny that those things don't happen, but the scale and the scope of that is nothing compared to what our children. I'm starting to preach now and our time's up. Mel,
well, and I know we don't have time to talk about it tonight, but I did a study in one of my years. We used a stopwatch and tested how much time did the teacher actually get to spend in a school day. How much time did they actually spend teaching versus dealing with bullies and dealing with this and that? It was less than 2 hours a day, and that was statewide. Less than 2 hours a day. So just that one aspect, and we wonder, why are they struggling? The kids are struggling, and there's so much other stuff going on. The teachers can't even teach.
Mel, we're going to have to do this again. We can't possibly touch everything, but you have. Thank you for sharing your. I did not put your website up there earlier, folks. You can go to DRME. It's on the screen. I don't need to enunciate it. That's where you can connect with Mel. And we hope you do. Mel, I thank you for your ministry, what you're doing for pastors. Thank you for your ministry.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Parents and children, and we'll just have to schedule up another time because there's just too much to cover in so little time. But thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Welcome.
All right, folks. Oh gosh, I'm sorry we ran out of time. There is the view. You're looking at it, the Eagle's Nest, the broadcast facilities. Here at pjnet.tv. Don't touch that dial. In just a few moments, J.D. Winninger will be taking us on a trip around the Cross W Ranch, and you won't want to miss that. I've got a little work to do, a little housekeeping to do between now and then. Before I leave, I would challenge you to challenge yourself with 2 questions. The first question is, what is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? The second one is, how long ago was that? The challenge, I think, is to never be satisfied with either answer.